This cycle ending was so good you'd think it was the season finale. Hi everyone and welcome to another Ranger, and as always I'm Archer9234. Today I'll be discussing the sixth and final installment in the Cycle Ranger arc, The Enemy Within. Now back when the Cycle Saga originally aired, this was a month-long event. We had to deal with some great episodes and some dumb episodes, but the final one didn't disappoint. Now like all the other Cycle stories, this one was adapted from Mega Ranger's 43rd episode, We Won't Lose, the decisive battle on Christmas Eve. The Cycle arc must hold the record for PR adapting Sentai in a straight order. Power Rangers in the past has adapted chunks of stories before, like the Green with Evil arc, but they weren't one after each other. Another unique thing is that the final story aired on Christmas week in Japan. Sentai does like making special Christmas shows, but usually happy-go-lucky ones. This episode was a rare departure to the norm. The main plot elements like Cycle Red getting tired of everyone telling him what to do, Yellow becoming a virus, and Zane devising a plan up are pretty much the same in the Mega Ranger episode. Even though the final episode for the Cycles was an amazing moment, the series still had the usual problematic story points with Astronema and Dark Spectre. At the beginning of Enemy, Astronema is giving a status report to Dark Spectre on the progress of his power drain. These scenes are still a confusing mess. I understand that Dark Spectre trusts Astronema. He has no reason to suspect anything from her, but the characters have been so inconsistent. First, Dark Spectre figures out the power drain is coming from Earth, doesn't do anything for himself to deal with it. Then Astronema keeps up the ruse of somewhere else in the galaxy the power drain is happening. I just wish the writers kept this more believable. This is the most important aspect of the arc. I would have shown at least a few moments of Dark Spectre sending out his own Quantatrons to Earth. It would show that Dark Spectre has some intelligence. But I did like the attention to the suit details. Since the Cycles are draining his energy, his body lava is starting to cool. Now here we go again with the Cycles problem. We find out that from Ecliptor that the Cycles once again left on their own to deal with the Rangers. Another story issue dealing with using Sentai footage in PR. But in Mega Rangers, they were more consistent with their actions. It just bothers me because in the last episode, the Cycles were actually listening to Astronema's plans, but now they just went back to their old ways. I also like to point out a small editing goof up during the Cycle plan scene. When we find out that Cycle Red is no longer listening to Astronema, we see that Yellow and Black are next to him. But when it cuts to the side shot of Red, we then see Yellow and Black walking back towards him. These types of goofs happen a lot in Power Rangers, more so in earlier days, for example scenes in Rita's palace. There are times when Goldar is sleeping in the background, but a few seconds later, he's talking to Rita. This happens because the editors are just trying to find shots that work with the US dialogue or trim out stuff that wouldn't make any sense for us. Which is what I wish the Samurai editors did with Master Xandred's medicine. It doesn't need to be there. I did like that In Space had the Astro Megaship traveling through space, tracking the dimensional hole that sucked up the Mega Voyager, but it does cause some issues with using Mega Ranger footage. Even though Mega Ranger deals with space and other cool scientific stuff, they actually don't travel through space. All the episodes happen on Earth, which causes these awkward moments where the Mega Tank lands on the planet. Now once the Rangers finally locate Mega Voyager, everyone was ready to rush off. Luckily, Zane realized that it had to be a trap. The Cycles in the past have created some really good plans that almost worked. But it does make some sense. I would have probably made the same mistakes since I would be more worrying about the Mega Voyager while Zane can be more clear-headed on the subject. Now for the Cycle vs. Zord fight. This was another great moment for the episode. Both sides were being smart. We had Zane's plan to fight them on two fronts, and the Cycles leave Yellow behind just in case if the Space Rangers try to pull something. When the Space Rangers entered their Zords and checked for any damage, I was also kind of confused why no one asked if the Mega Voyager was split apart. We also find out that the Cycles can actually take form as digital information, making Cycle Yellow a computer virus that took control of Voyager. But some in-space fans do get confused in this moment. We know that the Cycles can take forms of people and monsters, but we didn't know they could change into data. This makes more sense in Mega Rangers. If you remember in a past rant of mine, I talked about how the Mega Suits are stored as digital data in an arcade machine. The Neji Rangers function the exact same way. This detail unfortunately is lost in PR, but it does bring up some issues in both shows. Why didn't the Psychos do this in the first Zord fight? They sucked up all the Rangers' memories and abilities. They would have understood how the Zords worked. All 5 of them could have easily infected the 4 Megazords or even the suits themselves. This would have been an interesting episode. The Rangers would have fought one of their own. I would have personally picked Ashley, which would have lined up with this episode, and would have allowed Ashley to have a full episode just like Cassie having 2. Thanks to Cycle Yellow having full control over Voyager, Zane and the Delta Megazord were thrown off guard and chained up. Another thing that I have to complain about, since Yellow had full control over Voyager, why didn't she just blow up Voyager? That would have been the easiest way to kill off the Rangers. We know the Zords have a form of self-destruct thanks to a previous episode, the Delta Discovery. Eventually, Astronema orders Ecliptor to stop Psycho Red. Why didn't she just do this the other times that they disobeyed her? As Psycho Red fought Ecliptor, he became fed up with everyone telling him what to do, no longer caring about either Astronema or the other 2 Psychos, and just wanted Andros. I really liked the one-on-one fight with Andros and Psycho Red. It showed that Andros could finally stand up to Red even though he knows his moves, and we even see Andros create some new moves, like when he's firing his Astrobats through his holster, throwing Psycho Red off guard. Eventually, the Astro Megazord comes down from space, piloted by Deca and Alpha 6, and joins the fight. This was another major complaint I mentioned in the last episode. Why wasn't this done? Mega Ranger had this issue too. It's somewhat forgivable in space, but in Mega Ranger it wasn't. In an earlier episode of the series, Dr. Kubota took control of Galaxy Mega and helped out in an earlier fight. I do like to mention though, while Andros is fighting the other Psychos, TJ is trying to figure out how to get Yellow out of Voyager's systems. It's a bit out of character since we never see TJ ever interested into computers. This happens because Shun in Mega Ranger enjoys making computer programs and understands all this kind of stuff. After Andros uses the Astro Megazord's finisher on Mega Voyager to force Yellow out, we finally had all 4 Megazords back under full control. This really cool moment made the episode feel like a season finale. It involves all 4 Zords, even when some other season finales didn't include all the Zords in the fight. Ignoring the Astronema Corone story, if the season had ended here, this would have been a good ending. The Rangers devised up a risky plan, absorbing the attack energy to shoot right back at them. This could have easily had backfired. Remember earlier in the episode, Mega Voyager was badly damaged from the Astro Megazord finisher? It was also nice that Ashley and Cassie thought this up. Eventually, after all the Zorbs absorbed all the Psycho energy and transferred it into the V3 missile, the Space Rangers finally defeated the remaining Psychos. At the end of the fight, we see that Astronema is telling Dark Spectre that the Psycho Rangers were the main culprits. That was kind of a risky move of Astronema. I know Spectre is a bit stupid in some degree, but all he needed was one guy to spill the beans to him. It really didn't help that she opened her mouth in front of Elgar and all the people around the room about her secret plans. Overall, I have to give this episode a 5 out of 5. It was a fitting end to the Psycho Ranger story. It did have its usual confusing stories like Astronema and Dark Spectre and the Psychos going back and forth with them listening or not, but the solo fight with Andros and Psycho Red and the full episode Megazord fight made me forgive those issues. The Psychos were one of the best villains that PR has ever had. They were cunning, strong, had plans that nearly worked. Rarely do we see villains ever leave someone behind as backup for their plans, or villains ever succeeding in stealing a Megazord. The arc even respected the entire team. A lot of stories ended up ignoring half the Rangers, mainly the girls. Cassie was focused in 2 episodes, and Ashley was one of them who thought up the energy absorbing idea. And even Zane had some really good moments, like when he dressed up as Psycho Silver. The only thing that really bugged me is how the episode doesn't really line up with the Lost Galaxy in Space team-up. In the team-up, the Psychos were restored from data cards. Granted, it makes sense when we know that the Psychos can transform into digital data, but their deaths in the various episodes don't. Each one got killed over multiple days and they were blown up. I don't see how anyone could have gotten hold of them. The only thing I could personally think of is that the Psychos were copied like computer files, but if that was true, it wouldn't explain why Astronema wouldn't just make multiple copies over and over again. Now that you heard my thoughts on this episode, here are some of yours. As always, leave a suggestion below on what future episode you would like reviewed, and leave a review comment for the next Ranger Rant episode. I'll pick the 5 best ones and we'll feature them in the next episode. For next week's episode, I'll be discussing the last Psycho Ranger episode, The Power of Pink from Power Rangers Lost Galaxy. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you guys right back here next week. Now back when the Psycho Saga originally aired, this was a month long. The Psycho arc must hold a record of PR adapting Sentai eventually after all the Zorbs but the solo fight with Andros and Psycho Red and the full